I can play that one. If it's on in tune. Okay. I'll pull this up. Shuddha. Hey, there's a Bengali option. You can read this?
Yeah.
Okay.
শুনিতে মন অবসর সদা যাসে মৃদঙ্গ বাজ শুনিতে মন অবসর সদা মৃদঙ্গ বাজ শুনিতে মন অবসর সদা যাসে মৃদঙ্গ বাজ শুনিতে গৌরবিহিত কীর্তন শুনি আনন্দের হৃদয় কীর্তন শুনে আমার গৌরবিহিত কীর্তন শুনি আনন্দের হৃদয় নাচে গৌরবিহিত কীর্তন শুনি চরণ রেণ ভজনয়ন চরণ রেণ যুগলমূর্তি দেখিয়া মোরা পরম আনন্দ হয় যুগলমূর্তি পরম যুগলমূর্তি দেখিয়া মোর পরমায়ানন্দ হয় যুগলমূর্তি দেখিয়া প্রসাদ সেবা করিতে হয় সকল প্রপঞ্চ প্রসাদ সেবা করিতে হয় Hare Sachidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Vaimini Ekadasi Niti Mahamahotsav ki jai. Jagat Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hitaye Gaura Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Happy Ekadasi to everyone involved. So we'll just read the translations real quick of this song. Shuddha Bhakata Charanarano, a song that should be sung on every Ekadasi. At least that's the tradition. So, verse 1. The dust from the lotus feet of pure devotees gives rise in devotional service, and service to the devotees is itself the supreme perfection and the root of the tender creeper of divine love. You want to read the second one, Prabhu?
My translations are different, but I'll start. The holy days, like Ekadashi and Janmashtami, are the mother of devotion for those devotees who respect them. Let the holy places of Krishna's pastimes be my places of worship and blessing.
In the company of loving devotees, I will visit all those places where my Lord Gaur Sundar traveled and performed his pastimes.
When I hear the sound of the mridanga in my heart, I always desire to join in kirtan. And when I hear the bona fide songs describing Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, my heart dances in ecstasy.
I feel supreme bliss when I behold the deity forms of the divine couple, Sri Radha and Krishna, and I conquer all worldly illusions by honoring the Lord's Prashadam. Haribol!
One day, while performing devotional practices, I saw my house transformed into Golok Vrindavan. When I take the Charnamrita of the deity, I see the holy Ganges waters that come from the feet of Lord Vishnu, and my bliss knows no bounds.
This is something to really pay attention to. The sight of the Tulsi plant soothes my soul, for I know she gives pleasure to Krishna. I feel that my life has been fulfilled when I honor shak, a green leafy vegetable preparation that is a favorite of Lord Chaitanya's.
Bhakti Vinod concludes by saying, whosoever attains the stage of enthusiasm for these devotional practices will be supremely blissful wherever he may be.
Jai Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Baimi Ekadasi ki jai. Does anybody have any thoughts or reflections on this? We sing this song so many times. Today, I don't know, the first one really stood out to me. Service to the devotees is itself the supreme perfection and the root of the tender creeper of devotion. So, lotus feet of pure devotees gives rise to devotional service. I think that stuck out to me. That's something I can focus on today in Ekadasi. Service to the devotees is what's going to start everything. Al Prabhu, you have anything?
Yeah, I mean all the verses are really unique, like in the thoughts that Bhakti Vinod Thakur has offered. Like there is a service aspect, then there is the festival aspect,
Yatra aspect.
there is dham aspect.
Yeah.
Then all the kirtan aspect. It's such a wholesome bhajan, and of course it cannot be left without prasad.
So there's these, there's Prashad, there's Sadhu Sangha, there's
Tulsi, also the Charnamrita, the DTV.
I think about Bhagavatam. Because I don't see anything. That's the only thing that I see. I wouldn't say missing. Maybe it's a hidden meaning. Choose my dwelling place.
One day while performing devotional practices, maybe that's
practicing. Yeah, that could be reading. Yeah,
that is everything.
Tulsi is there. Shak is there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is telling that you should honor stock every day. Shak is like it's very simple.
Green leafy vegetables.
So devotees of Lord Chaitanya should eat very simple. Premananda Prabhu, do you have any comments on this song? Or Charuta? Can you hear us, Premananda Prabhu?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you
Okay.
hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
If not, we can move on to the next part of the program, which is the Srimad Bhagavatam class. Due to some circumstances,
Yeah, sorry about that.
Premananda Prabhu cannot be here live physically in his flesh in person in the temple, but he has come through his virtual presence. We're very happy to have him. Prabhu will be speaking about Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, and we'll be finishing up Chapter 10, the verses, and maybe he can just kind of summarize it up, and move on to Chapter 11. So Prabhu would speak 12. Prabhu will speak for about 45 minutes to 1 hour, and then there will be questions and answers.
Yes. Prabhu, is there a way I can share my screen?
Yeah, let me make you a co-host.
Yes. Okay, I think I got it now. Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, let's start with the Mangalacharan prayers.
Really? Just sit with me. Why? That's okay. We can start it together. Sorry, Prabhu.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, we'll start with the Mangalacharan prayers. We get started. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshulmitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Sva Padantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita. Sorry. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dino Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpaturupyascha Kripa Sindhube Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatya Desha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, Hare Krishna. Good morning. I apologize I couldn't be there in person because the material miseries related to my car is giving me lots of trouble. So I took it to the dealership yesterday, got it fixed. Again, I came home again, it started malfunctioning. So again, I have to go back to the dealer. So that's why I couldn't be there, and I apologize. So today we are wrapping up chapter 10 of first canto. Chapter 10 is Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka. Okay. And I'm covering the last 6 or 7 verses, text 30 to text 36. But before that, let me give a quick summary of what happened in this chapter. So, as you all know, after the Battle of Kurukshetra, Yudhishthira Maharaj was reinstated as the king of Hastinapur. And and this is a conversation that goes on between Sonagrishi and Sutta Goswami. Sonagrishi is asking, okay, after killing the aggressors, after winning the battle, how did Maharaj Parikshit, how did Maharaj Yudhishthira, assisted by his brothers, rule?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, your audio is not very clear.
I don't know what to do. Is it any better?
Yeah, it's good. It's good now. I think you just have to be a little bit closer. Yeah.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So what I was giving a summary of this chapter. Sonagrishi is inquiring from Sutta Goswami about how, after Yudhishthira Maharaj and his brothers have been reinstated back to the kingdom, how did they rule his subjects? And Sutta Goswami is saying that the Kuru dynasty is very happy now, it's very prosperous, the citizens are very happy, and because of Lord Krishna, Yudhishthira Maharaj has regained his kingdom. And then Lord Krishna, he resided in Hastinapur for a few months to pacify relatives, because there lost so many friends and well-wishers and relatives in the battle. So he stayed behind in Hastinapur for a few months to pacify his relatives and to please his own sister Subhadra, because she's very, very aggrieved. And then he took his permission from Yudhishthira Maharaj to leave. He said, okay, I have to now go to Dwarka. And this is where this whole separation between the devotees of Hastinapur and Lord Krishna started. And this chapter is basically explaining the unbearable situation that the devotees were feeling on hearing that Lord Krishna is going to leave them, right? But of course, if Krishna has to go, nobody can stop him. And Yudhishthira Maharaj is making all arrangements to kind of prepare for Lord Krishna's departure. And as the Lord was departing, different types of musical instruments were played. The Brahmanas were uttering benedictions and singing songs and so on. And in that whole process of Krishna's departure, the ladies of Hastinapur, they felt too much of separation, right? They went to their roofs and then they started talking about Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada says that the talks of the ladies of Hastinapur are more pleasing than actually hearing from the Vedic scripture, because sometimes the Vedic scriptures directly or indirectly glorify the Lord, but the women of the Kuru dynasty, they were fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, and therefore whatever they're saying is very attractive to their hearts and minds. So in that series of prayers or remembrance of Krishna, the verse that I'm covering is false. This also comes under that. So let me share my screen. Prabhu, can you see my screen? Okay, perfect. So let's go verse by verse, because there are 7 verses to cover. I may not be able to get to it, but here it is. So first verse is text 30, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, text 30. Eta param stridvam apastape shalam nirasta saucham bata sadhu purvate yasham grihat puskara lochana patir na jatu apaiti ahitripi ridis prishan. Translation: all these women auspiciously glorified their lives despite their being without individuality and without purity. Their husband, the lotus-eyed personality of Godhead, never left them alone at home. He always pleased their hearts by making valuable presentations. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The devotees of the Lord are purified souls. As soon as the devotees surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord sincerely, the Lord accepts them, and thus the devotees at once becomes free from all material contaminations. Such devotees are above the three modes of material nature. There is no bodily disqualification of a devotee, just as there is no qualitative difference between the Ganges water and the filthy drain water when they are amalgamated. Women, merchants, and laborers are not very intelligent, and thus it is very difficult for them to understand the science of God or to be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. They are more materialistic, and less than them are the Kiratas, Punas, Andhras, Pulindas, Pulkasas, Abiras, Kankas, Yavanas, Khasas, etc. But all of them can be delivered if they are properly engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. By engagement in the service of the Lord, the designative disqualifications are removed. And as pure souls, they become eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. The fallen girls under the clutches of Bhaumashura sincerely prayed to Lord Krishna for their deliverance, and their sincerity of purpose made them at once pure by virtue of devotion. The Lord therefore accepted them as his wives, and thus their lives became glorified. Such auspicious glorification was still more glorified when the Lord played with them as the most devoted husband. The Lord used to live with his 16,100 wives constantly. He expanded himself into 16,108 plenary portions, and each and every one of them was the Lord himself without deviation from the original personality. The Shruti mantra affirms that the Lord can expand himself into many. As husband of so many wives, he pleased them all with resignations, even at a costly endeavor. He brought the Parijata plant from heaven and implanted it at the palace of Satyabhama, one of the principal queens. If therefore anyone desires the Lord to become one's husband, the Lord fulfills such desires in full. So a quick summary of what's going on here. So Srila Prabhupada's purpose are really amazing. Even though there are so many aspects in this verse, Srila Prabhupada focuses on the word purity. So the first two paragraphs talks about purity. And I was kind of creating some notes about purity, about how purity is extremely important for our bhakti, for our devotional service. The principles of religion, they do not stand on some, I would say, man-made formulas, on some dogma. They stand on the foundation of purity. And because Srila Prabhupada says that purity is the force. But as devotees, sometimes what happens is we tend to take this whole process of purification as take for granted. Of course, we know that when you perform bhakti, you get purified. As soon as the devotees submit unto the lotus feet of the Lord, sincerely, the Lord accepts them, and they thus become free from all material contaminations. So purification happens the moment we surrender to Lord Krishna, but it's a process, it's a journey, right? Since we are not 100% surrendered, the purification also not there 100%. So that's why this whole process of purification has to be taken very seriously. And that's when Srila Prabhupada started this Krishna consciousness movement. He gave us two basic rules and regulations. One is chanting the holy name of the Lord at least 16 times a day, and following the four regulative principles. So this whole foundation of purity, it stands on four pillars: the pillars of mercy, the pillar of austerity, the pillar of cleanliness, and the pillar of truthfulness. Together, they constitute purity. Because Srila Prabhupada wants us that we should not only aspire for purification, we should practice purification, and we should also maintain purity. So that's very important. And that's the foundation of bhakti, right? In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says in chapter 16 that those who are demoniac, they do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Neither cleanliness nor proper behavior can be found in them. But we are not demoniac, we are trying to be devotees. So that's why this cleanliness and purity and proper behavior should be taken seriously. Once a devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, what does purity actually mean? And Srila Prabhupada says Whenever you are on spiritual platform, on the platform of Krishna consciousness, that's purity. And whenever you are not on spiritual platform, you are on material platform, that's impurity. So no matter whatever it is, whatever uncleanliness we have in our minds, in our hearts, in our bodies, all of these things prevent us from approaching Krishna. Therefore, our goal is just to be a pure devotee, not just a devotee. We take that we kind of proclaim ourselves to be devotee, and then we just coast along, thinking that, okay, all is good now. But we should really, really aspire to be a pure devotee. And you know what's the definition of pure devotional service, right? Anya bilasita sunyam, dhyana karma dhyana pratam, anukulyana krishnanu shilanam bhakti uttama. Where Srila Rupa Goswami says that pure devotional service should be free from all material desires and mental speculation and fruitive activities. Only then that devotion is pure devotion. So as a devotee, we should really cultivate the spirit of Anya bilasita sunyam and become a pure devotee. From a practical application, we see that sometimes what we consider to be pure, it's not really impure, it's really impure. And sometimes when you consider something impure, it turns out to be pure. Because at a neophyte stage, at least for me, I mean, that distinction is still not there, the difference between purity and impurity. For example, theoretically, I've always known the difference between bhoga and prasad. Right, there is this what before offering it's a bhoga, and after offering to Krishna, after Krishna blesses that bhoga, it becomes a prasad. But that was a theoretical understanding. And until devotees like, let's say, Nityanand Prabhu or Chanaka Pandit Prabhu or Mother Kamagiri, until I started assisting the kitchen, that whole the subtle difference between bhoga and prasad did not come to me. For example, you have the prasadam table, right? You are serving prasadam there, and there you come and cut vegetables to be offered to Krishna. That's not really pure, because that table is contaminated. So there is a very subtle distinction between bhoga and prasad. So similarly, in our day-to-day lives, the difference between purity and impurity is there at a gross level, and there are also very things that are at a very, very subtle level.
Your audio is like cutting in and out, and then for the last like 1 minute it was kind of out, like we could hear you but very faintly. It's something like, do you have like a mic or something, or are you like covering, is something covering your computer, like a notebook or something?
Little bit. Let me see what else can I do.
Sorry, Prabhu, to disturb.
That's okay.
That's why it's covering the mic.
Yeah, it sounds like something's covering the mic.
Let's see.
Oh yeah, this should work.
Can you hear me any better?
Yeah. Much better.
Okay.
You're talking about Mother Kamagiri and Nityanand Prabhu last time.
Yes. So I was giving the example of purity versus impurity, and I was taking the example of bhoga versus prasad, right? So when we start our Krishna consciousness journey, we come to temple and start at the temple. We know at a theoretical level, we know the difference between bhoga and prasad, but they always keep them separate, right? But there is a subtle difference as well, and that's that understanding the subtle difference between bhoga and prasad. I got to know through devotees such as Mother Kamagiri and Jatan, and all those devotees who always serve in the kitchen, right? And I was giving the example that you have the prasadam table outside, and then you have your prasad there, you serve devotees from there. But at the same time, because those prasadam plates or pots, they're already prasad, and you come in, let's say, cut your vegetables there to cook for the next service, right? Then that table is kind of contaminated because you are mixing bhoga and prasad together. So you should always, cut vegetables or cook on a clean table. So this is the subtle difference. And the reason I was giving this example is because in our day-to-day life, sometimes that distinction between purity and impurity is not there. I've seen devotees, not in this temple, like in the morning program, let's say in the japa, in the morning chanting period, I saw one devotee holding the japa mala on his bead bag on his right hand, and he was walking around the temple, and with his left hand, he was touching Srila Prabhupada's feet and offering obeisances. So you see that distinction that he thinks he's doing perfectly okay, chanting the holy name.
Premananda Prabhu, sorry, 1 second. We can't hear you again. Maybe can you join from your phone? Maybe is that possible?
At least the audio.
Yes.
Let's see.
Even the video, like, just complete instead of from the, because do you have any like presentation do you want to share on the?
No, I was just going through this whole verse by
I can
verse.
share the screen and then maybe you can join on your phone or something. I think it's a problem with your computer.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Sorry, bro.
That's okay. I'm sorry about that.
No problem. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
He's trying to speak.
No, it's a phone, so maybe.
You have to unmute Prabhu, I think, on the phone. Maybe you can join Zoom on your phone. You can just click the Zoom link and join Zoom on the phone rather than calling in. And then, yeah.
Hare Krishna.
You mute your computer. And, you can turn the volume all the way down, and then we can hear you properly.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, much better.
Better?
Yes, if you want to turn on your computer camera, you can do that, but just keep your computer muted so it doesn't.
Yeah, computer is muted. I'm going to use the laptop monitor for the verses and this phone for speaking. Is that okay?
Yeah, it sounds really good. You were talking about a person with japa. We were with a japa bag in the morning program. That's the last thing I heard.
Yes. So I was giving the example that sometimes that distinction between purity and impurity is not there because we are not conscious of it always. And I was giving the example that in one temple, I saw that a devotee in the morning program, after the morning program during this chanting period, japa period, he was holding the bead bag on his right hand as usual. He's chanting the holy name and he's walking around the temple. And at one moment I saw him touching Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet with his left hand and kind of offering obeisances with his left hand, touching the lotus feet. And he was not at all conscious because he was chanting, he was thinking that he was doing everything okay. But from an outsider, when you look at it, it's like, okay, that's not right. You cannot touch Srila Prabhupada or anything in devotional service with your left hand because left hand is considered impure. So these are the subtle differences about purity and impurity. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is one particular pastime of Raghav Pandit. And Raghav Pandit is an associate of Lord Chaitanya. He used to live in Panihati near Calcutta. And once Raghav Pandit was wanted to offer some coconuts to Krishna. And it was getting late. He asked his servant, hey, can you quickly go to the market and get me some fresh coconut? I want to offer it to Krishna. And the servant goes running. He comes back with the coconut. And he was standing at the door. Raga Pandit was inside the puja room or altar, and he was standing at the door to give the coconuts to Raga Pandit. And this is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, one of the chapters. And what the servant did is he was standing at the door, holding the coconut in one hand, and somehow accidentally he also touched the ceiling of the door. He raised his hand and happened to touch the ceiling. Okay. And Raga Pandit got very furious. He says, how can you do that? The whole day devotees are coming in and out of the temple room, and their dust, devotees or non-devotees, visitors, whoever it is, and their dust touched the kind of, because of the wind, the dust blows up, and then it touches the ceiling, and you touch the ceiling and then touch the coconut. So this is contaminated now. I cannot offer it to Krishna. So throw them. So this is the level of consciousness that pure devotees have in terms of purity, right? And this is an example. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his commentary in the purport, he says that this is not some fanaticism. This is really like very advanced stage where they can really see purity in impurity or impurity in purity to make the distinction. So that's the kind of consciousness we have to develop over a period of time. We have to be conscious of what we are doing. We have to be conscious of how we are seeing things, saying things, touching things, where we are keeping things, that kind of stuff. Whether we are washing our hands properly, whether we are touching something abominable and again touching some devotional articles. So that consciousness have to be there. So that's what kind of made a deep impression on me when I was going through this particular purport where Srila Prabhupada talks so much about purity. He's talking about purification. Similarly, in this verse, the ladies, because these women, all these women, who were these women? They were the women who were kidnapped by Bhaumasura, right? And then Lord Krishna delivered them. And this woman said, "We have nowhere to go, and you have to accept us." So because they were with this demoniac person for such a long time, they were imprisoned. In a way, they lost their purity, because in Indian culture, it says that if you are staying with unmarried man or without a relation, then it's not considered very, I would say, acceptable in the society. So these ladies were without purity, but Srila Prabhupada says that because they accepted Lord Krishna as their master, as their husband, all their purification went away. They at once became free from all material contamination. So that's the power of purification. Our real purification comes when we associate with, basically, from three things: from Bhagavan, Lord Krishna, from bhaktas, pure devotees, and from bhakti, Bhagavan, bhakta, bhaktis. Those are the three things from which the purification can come. And even in the morning, that bhajan we sang just before, the first very line, right? Once you take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, then you have all good fortune. Similarly, we have all good, all auspiciousness and all purity when we associate with pure devotees, right? So that's the first principle from this purport, that the purification is really important, and the devotees of the Lord are purified souls, and when you associate with them, when you take shelter of them or take shelter of Lord Krishna, then we become purified. Now the second part of the verse talks about Lord Krishna's accepting all these women as his wives. Right now, there are outsiders who are not devotees. Sometimes I think one time they asked Srila Prabhupada, isn't Krishna very promiscuous? He has so many wives. Prabhupada said, Krishna is the Supreme Lord. He can have 1,000,000 wives. What problem do you have? Right? And in this case, Krishna is self-satisfied. He's all complete by himself. He doesn't need us to be happy. But because devotees want to associate with Krishna, this woman wanted Krishna as their husband, so Krishna reciprocated. Ya yatha mam prapadate tam tataiva bhajami aham. As you reciprocate, Krishna also reciprocates accordingly. So this is the principle here, that Krishna accepted them just to fulfill all their desires. So these are the two principles we take from this verse, that about purification and about Krishna reciprocating based on our level of devotion and surrender. So that's text number 30. Then we can go on to text number 31. This is very short. Evam vida gadantinam sagira purayoshitam nirikshanena bhinandan shasmitena yayau hari. While the ladies of the capital Hastinapur were greeting him and talking in this way, the Lord, smiling, accepted their good greetings, and casting the grace of his glance over them, he departed from the city. This verse has no purport, but Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he gave a very one-line purport in his Sarartha Darshini Tika. So here, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is talking about two ladies. There's one ladies who are Krishna's wives, 16,108 wives. They are in conjugal rasa. And there's another group of ladies who are just kind of, I would say, not related to Krishna in a sense. They are just in Santa rasa. So in a mood of neutrality. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that to those women who are in Santa rasa, in neutrality, Krishna cast his glance over them. And for those who are his wives, 16,108 wives, he smiles at them. So he brought us this distinction between glance and smile. He said that those who are just in neutrality, Krishna glanced at them, and those who are in conjugal rasa with Krishna, he smiled at them. So that's what we take away from this verse. Moving on, text 32. Ajata satru pritanam gopithaya madhudvisa parebhya shankita snehat prayungta chaturanginim. Maharaj Yudhishthira, although no one's enemy, engaged 4 divisions of defense: horse, elephant, chariot, and army to accompany Lord Krishna, the enemy of the Asuras, demons. The Maharaja did this because of the enemy and out of affection of the Lord. Purport. Natural defensive measures are horses and elephants combined with chariots and men. Horses and elephants are trained to move to any part of the hills or forest and plains. The charioteers could fight with many horses and elephants by the strength of powerful arrows, even up to the standard of Brahmastra, similar to modern atomic weapons. Maharaj Yudhishthira knew well that Krishna is everyone's friend and well-wisher, and yet there were asuras who were by nature envious of the Lord. So out of fear of attack from others and out of affection also, he engaged all varieties of defensive forces as bodyguards of Lord Krishna. If required, Lord Krishna himself was sufficient to defend himself from the attack of others who counted the Lord as their enemy. But still he accepted all the arrangements made by Maharaj Yudhishthira because he could not disobey the king, who was his elder cousin. The Lord placed the part of a subordinate in his transcendental sporting, and thus sometimes he puts himself in the care of Yashoda Mata for his protection in his so-called helplessness of childhood. That is the transcendental Leela or pastime of the Lord. The basic principle for all transcendental exchanges between the Lord and his devotees is exhibited to enjoy a transcendental bliss for which there is no comparison, even up to the level of Brahmanda. So in this verse, Maharaj Yudhishthira has arranged defensive forces to protect Lord Krishna on his travel to Dwarka. And the main essence of the purport is that, Lord Krishna is the supreme controller, is the supreme protector, like who can harm him? But Maharaj Yudhishthira still, out of his love for Krishna, out of his devotion, and because he's the elder cousin, he arranged all these defensive forces to protect Lord Krishna, right? And Lord Krishna accepted. He said, okay, whatever my devotees give me, I'll accept lovingly. So he accepted Lord Yudhishthira Maharaj's all these army of defensive forces to protect Lord Krishna. So this is a kind of sweet transcendental pastimes between the Lord and the devotees. The Lord loves to be controlled by his devotees, just like we have seen in the Damodar Leela, where Lord Krishna felt happy to be chastised and bounded by Mother Yashoda. So similarly is the mood here. Yudhishthira Maharaj felt responsible that he should protect his younger cousin Krishna, and that's why he arranged all these defensive forces to protect Lord Krishna. So this is another example of a sweet pastime between Lord Krishna and his devotees. Text 33. Atha duragatan sauri kauravan virahaturan sannivartya dridam snigdhan prayatswa nagarim priyai. Out of profound affection for Lord Krishna, the Pandavas, who were of the Kuru dynasty, accompanied him at considerable distance to see him off. They were overwhelmed with the thought of future separation. The Lord, however, persuaded them to return home, and he proceeded towards Dwarka with his dear companions. So here we see that because of impending separation from Lord Krishna, the devotees walk with Lord Krishna for considerable distance, and Lord Krishna says, "Okay, that's now you please go home because I have to proceed towards Dwarka." Text 34-35. Kuru Jangala Panchalan Sura Senan Shayamunan Dhamma Vartam Kurukshetram Matsyan Sarasvatan Atha Marudhanvam Atikramya Swavirabhirayo Paran Anarthan Bhargavopagach Shantavahom Manak Vibhu. Translation. O Saunaka, the Lord then proceeded towards Kuru Jangala, Panchala, Surachena, the land on the bank of the river Yamuna, Brahmavarta, Kurukshetra, Matsya, Sarasvat, the province of the desert, and the land of scanty water. After crossing these provinces, he gradually reached the Savira and Abira provinces. Then, west of this, reached Dwarka at last. Purport. The provinces passed over by the Lord in those days were differently named, but the direction given is sufficient to indicate that he traveled through Delhi, Punjab, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Saurashtra, and Gujarat, and at last reached his home province at Dwarka. We do not gain any profit simply by researching the analogous provinces of those days up to now, but it appears that the desert of Rajasthan and the provinces of scanty water like Madhya Pradesh were present even 5,000 years ago. The theory of soil experts that the desert developed in recent years is not supported by the statements of Bhagavatam. We may leave the matter for expert geologists to research because the changing universe has different phases of geological development. We are satisfied that the Lord has now reached his own province, Dwarka Dham, from the Kuru provinces. Kurukshetra continues to exist since the Vedic age, and it is sheer foolishness when interpreters ignore or deny the existence of Kurukshetra. So this verse talks about the geographical, I would say, terrestrial path that Krishna took to go to Dwarka. Basically, he traveled through northwestern side of India, right? Starting from Delhi, Punjab, Rajasthan, MP, Saurashtra, and Gujarat. So that's the northwestern side of India. And those states still exist. And Srila Prabhupada also talks about that there are some people who says that the desert or those kind of, they're more recent phenomenon, but Srila Prabhupada is kind of countering them, saying, no, all these things existed even since more than 5,000 years ago. So there's no point in kind of getting into all this geological debate as to whether something existed or not. They always existed. So that's the essence of this verse about the path that Lord Krishna took. Coming on to the last verse, text 36. Tatra tatrahi tatrakyar hari pratu dhyatar hanaha chayam bhejadisham paschat gavisto gam gatastada. Translation: on his journey through these provinces, he was welcomed, worshipped, and given various presentations. In the evening, in all places, the Lord suspended his journey to perform evening rites. This was regularly observed after sunset. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is said here that the Lord observed the religious principles regularly while he was on the journey. There are certain philosophical speculations that even the Lord is under the obligations of fruitive action. But actually, this is not the case. He does not depend on the action of any good or bad work. Since the Lord is absolute, everything done by him is good for everyone. But when he descends to the earth, he acts for the protection of the devotees and for the annihilation of the impious non-devotees. And although he has no obligatory duty, still he does everything so that others may follow. That is the way of actual teaching. One must act properly himself and teach the same to others. Otherwise, no one will accept one's blind teaching. He is himself the awarder of fruitive results. He is self-sufficient, and yet he acts according to the rulings of the revealed scriptures in order to teach us the process. If he does not do so, the common man may go wrong. But in the advanced stage, when one can understand the transcendental nature of the Lord, one does not try to imitate him. This is not possible. The Lord in human society does what is the duty of everyone, but sometimes he does something extraordinary and not be imitated by the living being. His acts of evening prayer, as stated herein, must be followed by the living being, but it is not possible to follow his mountain lifting or dancing with the gopis. One cannot imitate the sun, which can exhaust water even from a filthy place. The most powerful can do something which is all good, but our imitation of such acts will put us into endless difficulty. And therefore, in all actions, the experienced guide, the spiritual master, who is the manifested mercy of the Lord, should always be consulted, and the path of progress will be assured. So this verse talks about that is a practical example of that Parichanaya Sarunam verse. Parichanaya Sarunam Vinashayata Duskritam Dharma Samstapanarthaya Sambhavani Yuge Yuge. And here Krishna is saying that he also descends to establish the religious principles. And one of the religious principles here is that basically he's talking about the evening rites. That Lord Krishna himself performed these religious principles, whether it's chanting his whatever prayers in the evening or chanting his Gayatri and so on. So he's coming here to establish those religious principles, because in Bhagavad Gita says, whatever great men do, common men follow. And Krishna is just an example. Krishna says that if I don't do anything, the world will go into chaos. So I have to show the path. And that's what the acharyas are. They lead by example. That's what they are called acharyas. They lead by example. So similarly, it is said that Lord Krishna did all of this just to show us how we should lead our lives, right? Some people may say, especially the Maya, but so Krishna comes under all this Maya, therefore he has to do all this for purification and everything. But no, he's absolute. He doesn't need to do any of this. He's always transcendental. And because he's transcendental, whatever he does is transcendental. But he's doing all of this just to give an example, right? So that we also do our morning program, our chanting, our sadhana, and all that, and follow the regulated principles. So that's what Krishna is teaching us. He said, if he does not do so, the common man may go wrong. So therefore, we should not imitate him blindly. We should just do what he says. And to wrap it up, Srila Prabhupada says that, so this is the duty of everyone, that we should do something, seriously follow the instruction of the spiritual master, and whatever spiritual master says we should do. We should not blindly imitate Lord Krishna, like it's Rasa Leela or trying to leave the mountain hill. It's not possible for us. But things that is practical for us, like such as evening prayer, our sadhana, this must be followed by the living being. So Srila Prabhupada is throwing in a word of caution there. So don't blindly imitate. Whatever is possible and whatever has been instructed by the spiritual master, that we should follow. So that's I would say, overall summary of what I discussed so far. So the main couple of principles that take away is basically the first principle that I talked about is the principle of purity. We should be conscious of purity. We should aspire for purity. We should practice purity, and we should also maintain purity. That's very important for our spiritual progress. Otherwise, there is a chance of falling down or becoming, I would say, taking the process of Krishna consciousness is very easy. So we should be very, very mindful of that. Because any desire other than the desire to serve the Supreme Lord is an impure desire. Any knowledge that you cultivate that is not related to Krishna consciousness is an impure knowledge. Any action that we do that is not really related to Krishna consciousness is bounded by karma. It's not really pure action, right? So, and any philosophy that we accept, and if this philosophy is not pertaining to devotional service, pure devotional service, that's also a waste of time. So we should be really conscious of what purity is, and based on that, we should mold our lives in such a way. The remaining principles are that Krishna is all self-satisfied. He reciprocates with the devotees as they reciprocate with him. Just in this case, Maharaja is giving him all protection for his journey to Dwarka, right? And the last principle is that we should follow all the instruction that the spiritual master has given us, and our path of progress will be assured. So that's the main principle that we take away from this. And so the whole point is we should not just be satisfied by being a devotee. We should aspire to be a pure devotee. And I want to share, just to wrap it up, I want to share a couple of very interesting purport by Srila Prabhupada on this whole purification thing. So this is last verse of chapter 3 of first canto, and Srila Prabhupada here is talking about. So this verse talks about that we should hear Srimad Bhagavatam with rapt attention, right? The reason we struggle with getting proper realization is because we do not hear attentively. We are distracted. So Srila Prabhupada says we should hear from rapt attention from a bona fide speaker, not just any mundane speaker, from a bona fide speaker who is coming from a disciplic succession. Now someone may ask, okay, so what do you mean by rapt attention? How can we be in rapt attention? And in the last section, Srila Prabhupada gives the secret. He says, no one can give rapt attention who is not pure in mind. No one can be pure in mind who is not pure in action. No one can be pure in action who is not pure in eating, sleeping, fearing, mating. So you see, there's a nice process. We should be pure in mind. We should be pure in our action, and we should be pure in our eating, sleeping, mating, defending, and defending. But some or other, if someone hears with rapt attention from the right person at the very beginning, one can assuredly see Lord Krishna in the person of the pages of Bhagavatam. And Srila Prabhupada is saying in the very beginning, not even like after years of Krishna consciousness. No, at the very beginning, we hear with rapt attention, we can realize Krishna through the pages of Bhagavatam. And here Srila Prabhupada is saying the whole power of purity, how we should really endeavor for purity, right? And another beautiful verse I want to quickly share is how powerful a pure devotee is. As I said, we should aspire for pure devotion. And this is Canto 4, Chapter 8. This is Dhruva Maharaj's pastime, very first chapter of Dhruva Maharaj, where he leaves for the forest to find Lord Krishna. And here Srila Prabhupada is giving the power of pure devotee. So Srila Prabhupada is saying here, if there is only one pure devotee in pure Krishna consciousness, I repeat, if there is only one pure devotee in pure Krishna consciousness, he can change the total consciousness of the world into Krishna consciousness. This is not very difficult to understand if we study the behavior of Dhruva Maharaj. So at different places, Srila Prabhupada emphasizes the importance of purity, about how we should really aspire to be a pure devotee, and through that process, we will be able to influence others, right? Purity is the force, and that will also make us more people accept Krishna consciousness. So just to wrap it up, because we are all aspiring, practicing devotees, we should aspire for purity, and we should also aspire to reach a stage where we are able to chant the holy name of the Lord offenselessly in a pure manner, Shuddhanam. And for that, we humbly pray to the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because Lord Nityananda's Triyodasi is in a couple of days. So let's go with that mood to Lord Nityananda to kind of purify us, take us all our anartha, so that also we can engage in pure devotional service, pure bhakti, for the pleasure of Shri Radha, Nathavar, and Srila Prabhupada. So that's the key, I would say, overview of what I spoke today. And with this, I would like to stop here and see whether any of you have any questions or comments to talk about. I'm sorry again for all this interruption and everything. It's just one of those unfortunate weeks I'm going through.
Thank you, Premananda Prabhu, for that class. Do you have anything else, Prabhu? Or
I just want to say thank you, Premananda Prabhu. That was a really nice explanation, and the way you connected, the purport the pre and what is it? 1344. You know how.
Yeah,
Prabhupada-
1344. That's the last. That's the last. This is a chapter where the Ete Chamcha Kalapamsa verse is there, and this is the last verse of the chapter where Srila Prabhupada says how we should receive Srimad Bhagavatam in a pure state of mind. And this has always touched me, and this is very similar to the Bacho Vegam Manasa Krodha Vegam verse, right? It's all about attaining purity, because unless we are pure in our actions, body, and our day-to-day life, getting this rapt attention is very, very difficult, right? So that's I found this very, very profound, and I always try to keep this in mind, even though it's very hard to follow.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing this up. It's really, it seems very relevant.
Yes.
And also, yeah, I was, recently I have heard, quite a few times from really advanced devotees about. You also mentioned that how Prabhupada used to say purity is the force, and Prabhupada has given entire process to help us get
Yes.
purified. And especially he was I mean, what I heard from His Grace Gopaleshwar Prabhu, that 16 rounds and 4 regular principles are it's a must. But Prabhupada also gave the whole morning program.
Yeah.
Prabhupada also gave the whole preaching activities, that how one can preach, how we can reach out to outside people, and how we can build. So there are so many ways Prabhupada has given, and Prabhupada said to maintain, just keep maintaining the standards, and the purity will follow.
Yes, absolutely.
Stick to the process. It's not really, and it's I'm experiencing that it's kind of very powerful. Yeah, it's if one takes to this process seriously, and yes, it's very easy to get distracted or enthusiasm, but if you stick to people who are very enthusiastic, like Hari sitting next to me,
Yes, absolutely.
uh, the purity follows.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
fought away.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Thank you,
thank you.
Alex Prabhu. Nice realization. Thank you.
Yeah. I was actually also wondering, you mentioned that in devotional service, of course, this is a very, yeah, it's a dumb question, but you said that we don't use left hand and as such, but in our DT worship or anywhere, we touch,
No, I mean, you touch with both the hands is fine. Not just exclusively left hand, right? Yeah, that's the thing. Because that whole devotee offering, touching Srila Prabhupada's feet with his left hand, I think that was inappropriate. So that's the example I was giving, right?
Mm.
Of course, you do both with both the hands. That's perfectly fine, right? Right. For example, we ring the bell with the left hand, and with the right hand we do our deep dupe and all of this. Those are fine. But when you try to offer something with the left hand, that's not right. Wherever is allowed, left hand, for example, cooking, doing service, cleaning, those are fine. But when you're just trying to do everything with the left hand, that's not appropriate, because left hand is considered dirty, right? Similarly, our this forefinger is also not right. Once I was I don't know. Once I was trying to, I think they were doing some yagga. I think it was in a New Jersey temple. By mistake, I touched all this yagga paraphernalia with this, that you throw, right, all this thing on the fire. And by mistake, I touched this forefinger, and one devotee pointed to Prabhu, no, never touch this finger. Always use these other fingers. So it's a matter of consciousness. We sometimes may not realize it, but when you associate with pure devotees, they will guide you. This whole bhoga and prasad thing, Nitatan Prabhu corrected me so many times, because I would mix them. He would really get angry. He would scold me. He said, no, there's a difference. Because I didn't know. There was a jnana, but not the vijnana, the practical realization.
Mm.
And that's why when you associate with pure devotees like them, then you get that understanding. So that's why Srila Prabhupada says that we should, of course, whatever morning program we do is fine, but it's also carefully observe how advanced devotees behave, right? It's very, very important.
Wow, Jai, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Yes, Prabhu, I also really learned a lot from your class. I really like the point about purity also.
Mhm.
The verse you brought from text 44 of chapter 3 really sums up. When I was in the New York ashram, um, somehow or other, I used the restroom. I went to pass stool, and then I came out, and then the brahmachari leader is like, "What are you doing?" And then I said, I just used the restroom, and I have to go. I'm going to go doing some japa. And then I asked, why? And then he said, "You should take a shower immediately." I was thinking, and he said, "Take off all your clothes also. They're also dirty." I was
Yeah.
thinking, why is he getting on my case about this? I
Right.
didn't know much. But then after that, he explained to me that when you are doing something degrading, like say we cut our hair or pass school, these, even though we are chanting Hare Krishna and doing the spiritual process, it still affects our material consciousness.
Right.
Back in the day, I was getting in the habit of chanting my Prabhupada before taking a shower because I wanted to get it done early. But then what would happen is that I would keep falling asleep and be that degraded consciousness.
Mhm.
So being association with that degraded consciousness, your mind, no, it doesn't affect the spiritual potency at all. You can come do your japa. It doesn't affect the japa. It doesn't affect that, but it affects your material consciousness.
Yes.
And once it affects your material consciousness, then as it said, you can be rapt attention, it's up your mind, not in action, and then you have to eating, sleeping, eating. All those need to be purified. If
Right.
you do, some things might be it might work out like you hear and Prabhupada's giving like a caveat at the end of the line. He's saying that one who hears somehow or other, even if he's not doing all these things, if he hears
Right.
he's on the Abhichet Sudrachar,
Right.
and
Right.
he's straight on the right path.
Yes.
So, like you hear many passages if somebody just saw Srila Prabhupada or just heard from him once, and immediately they shave their head, join the temple, and they're still practicing devotional service 50 years.
Right.
So, being pure in body and clean and all this, but also it should not be niyamagraha and niyamagraha, right?
Absolutely.
There needs to be a balance between um, like today I cooked for the offering in Ekadasi. I was thinking, devotees sometimes say don't use this, don't use that. I was just thinking, what is Srila Prabhupada's rule? They say don't use this food or that food or this food or that food. I just said, no grains and no beans. Anything else is I'm good to go, So that's
Yeah.
thinking that niyamagraha.
Yes. Because yeah. Yeah. That's a good point because the spiritual, right? Sometimes we focus so much on the ritual and you forget the spirit, right? You've seen so many people in India, very religious, but they are focused more on the ritual part of it and not the spirit. So there should be a balance. Very good point. Um, uh, and that purity thing. One more thing, I want to mention that after I got initiated in 11 that weekend, and Shumananda Prabhu told me that Prabhu, now you are initiated, you are a Brahman now. So every time let's say when you cut your nails or shave, you should take shower. Yeah. So the standards has become very, very high, because sometimes I would cut my nails anytime, without even wondering that, okay, it's fine, just I'm cutting nails. But even when you cut nails or shave, do it before shower so that you get shower.
Yeah, it's considered the excrement of the body, right?
Right, absolutely.
Nails, facial hair. It's considered excess of the body, so that's why we cut it beforehand. That's at least that's what I was explaining. Yeah, I think yes.
No, you're saying something?
Yeah, I think that was it. But thank you very much for the class. It was really really excellent. Did anybody else have anything to say? Mother Charita, Naeem Prabhu, do you have any comments? Speak
No,
now.
nothing. No questions. No questions.
So
Anything on YouTube? Are you live?
on YouTube? Alec is checking now. No, there's nothing. But
Okay.
Next time in person, Prabhu, please.
Absolutely, absolutely. I wanted in person. What to do? I mean, I was kind of handicapped. I couldn't do anything.
No
I mean,
problem.
I spent so much money, got it fixed, the tire, and then
Let us
by
know if you need anything, we can pick you up
was that?
and drop you. We can start the pickup and drop service. Anything happens to your car next time.
We'll send a Vimana.
That would be nice. I was actually hoping that I will tell Hari Prabhu to come and pick me up, but I thought that would be too much in the morning.
I was also thinking of offering yesterday, but then I remembered I have to cook breakfast. So
Yeah.
I didn't think I would have enough time. But
Yeah, I have to get it fixed today. Otherwise, tomorrow is my Srila Prabhupada dressing. I don't want to miss that.
well, thank you so much for this wonderful Bhagavatam class. We'll start chapter 11 next week, and I think next week's our Maha Mangalarti.
Oh, is
So
it? Okay, very nice.
please join, and we'll just end with Vaishnava pranams. Mancha kalpatarubhyascha sindhubhyeva patanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. His Grace Ananda Prabhu ki jai. Hari Hari Bol.
Okay, Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your patience and tolerating me.
Thank you.